At some point, someone you trusted completely showed you who they actually were. Maybe it was sudden. A betrayal you never saw coming. Maybe it was slow. A friendship that quietly hollowed out over years, until one day you realized the person on the other end had not been fully present for a very long time. Maybe it was small. A comment repeated to the wrong person. A moment of support that never came when you needed it most. A pattern of being remembered only when you were useful. And in that moment, something shifted, not just about that one person, about people in general. A quiet, uncomfortable thought started forming. Maybe I have been too trusting. Maybe I gave access to people who never earned it. Maybe the whole idea of friendship, the way I understood it, was more naive than I realized. Here is what I want to say to you clearly, before we go any further. That thought is not cynicism. It is not bitterness. And it is not the beginning of becoming a cold or closed-off person. It is the beginning of wisdom. The Stoics understood something about human relationships that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not everyone who calls themselves your friend is actually your friend. Not everyone who has access to your life has earned the right to that access. And the person who learns to see this clearly, without becoming bitter, without closing off from genuine connection entirely, builds something far more valuable than a large circle of acquaintances. They build a small circle of people worth actually trusting. Today, we are going to talk honestly about why so few people deserve the label friend, and exactly how to tell the difference. Seneca wrote about this more directly than almost any other Stoic. He lived in the Roman court, surrounded by people whose loyalty shifted with the political winds, whose friendliness was often simply strategy wearing a warmer face. He knew better than most how dangerous it is to hand out trust freely. He wrote, "Regard him as a friend after you have judged him, but before that, judge him. Ride that carefully. Judge first. Trust after, not the other way around, which is how most people actually operate. Most people extend trust automatically. To anyone who is pleasant, anyone who is present, anyone who says the right things at the right time. And they only judge, only actually examine whether this person deserves that trust after something has already gone wrong, after the damage is already done." The Stoics reversed that order entirely. Judge first, watch, observe, test gently and over time, and only after someone has demonstrated consistently and through their actions rather than their words that they deserve it. Extend genuine trust. This is not paranoia. This is simply intelligence applied to one of the most important areas of a person's life. The first truth: most people are not your friends. They are your circumstances. This is the hardest truth to accept, and the most important one to understand clearly. Many of the people who occupy your social world right now are not there because of a deep, chosen bond with you specifically. They are there because of circumstance. You work together. You live near each other. Your children go to the same school. You happen to be part of the same group at the same time, for reasons that have nothing to do with a genuine connection between you. And circumstantial relationships are not bad. They can be pleasant, useful, even genuinely enjoyable. But they are not the same thing as friendship, and confusing the two is where most people get hurt. Because the moment the circumstance changes, the job ends, the move happens, the shared context dissolves. Many of these relationships simply end with it, not out of cruelty, not out of betrayal, simply because there was never anything beneath the circumstance holding it together. Marcus Aurelius understood this distinction clearly, living as he did surrounded by senators, generals, and advisors, many of whom were present because of his position, not because of him. He wrote, "Look at things for what they are, not what they appear to be." A circumstantial connection appears on the surface, identical to a genuine one. Same smiles, same friendly conversation, same apparent warmth. The difference only becomes visible under one specific condition. What happens when the circumstance is removed? or when something is asked of the relationship that costs the other person something real. That is where the appearance and the reality separate, and most people never test for it. Because testing feels suspicious, feels like a betrayal of the trust they have already extended. But the Stoics would say the opposite is true. Extending unearned trust, and then being shocked when it fails, is the actual mistake. Testing gently, watching carefully, before extending your full trust is simply wisdom, the second truth. Watch what people do when they have nothing to gain from you. This is the single most reliable test available, and almost no one applies it deliberately. Here is how it works. Watch how someone treats people who cannot benefit them in any way. The waiter, the stranger who needs help and offers nothing in return. The person lower in status, with nothing to offer socially or professionally. A person's behavior in these moments, when no one is watching who matters to their reputation, and nothing is at stake for them personally, reveals character far more accurately than their behavior toward you. Someone they may have specific reasons to impress or accommodate. Because here is an uncomfortable but important reality. Almost anyone can be pleasant to someone whose good opinion they want. That takes no character at all. It simply takes self-interest. The real test is what remains when self-interest is removed from the equation entirely. Epictetus lived this test personally, born into slavery. He spent years as someone with genuinely nothing to offer those around him. No status, no resources, no social capital. And the way people treated him during that period taught him more about their actual character than any conversation ever could have. He carried that lesson into his teaching for the rest of his life. Watch behavior, not words. Watch what people do when nothing is at stake for them. That is where the truth of a person actually lives. Apply this test to the people in your own life, honestly. Watch how they speak about others who are not present. Watch how they treat people who serve them, in restaurants, in shops, in any context where politeness is optional rather than strategic. Watch what they do the moment you have nothing left to offer them. The answers, if you are willing to look honestly, will tell you more than years of pleasant conversation ever could. The third truth. Genuine friendship is rare because it requires something most people are not willing to give. Here is what makes real friendship so uncommon. It requires vulnerability in both directions, not performance. Not the curated version of yourself that gets presented in most social interactions, the actual, unguarded self, flaws included, uncertainties included, the parts of you that are not impressive or attractive but simply true. Seneca wrote something that captures this precisely. A friend is one with whom you dare to be yourself. Dare, that word matters. It implies risk. It implies the genuine possibility of rejection, because being fully yourself with another person is not safe in the way that maintaining a pleasant social distance is safe. And most relationships, if we are honest, never move past that safe distance. Both people remain slightly guarded, slightly curated, presenting versions of themselves calibrated to be liked rather than fully known. This is not a criticism of those relationships. They serve their purpose. But it means that genuine friendship, the kind built on real vulnerability, real honesty, real mutual understanding, is rare specifically because it requires something most relationships never attempt: the willingness to be truly seen, and the willingness to truly see someone else in return, including the parts that are not flattering. If you are counting genuine friends on more than one hand, across an entire lifetime, you may want to examine whether you are actually counting friends, or simply counting people who have been pleasant to be around. There is nothing wrong with a wide circle of pleasant people, but do not confuse that circle's size with the presence of real friendship. They are different things, measured by entirely different standards. The fourth truth. The people who talk about others the most will eventually talk about you. This is a pattern worth watching for specifically, because it is one of the clearest predictors available of how someone will treat you when you are not present. If someone consistently brings you information about other people, their mistakes, their private struggles, their flaws, framed as concern or simply as conversation, understand clearly what this reveals. Not just information about the people being discussed. Information about what this person does with private information in general. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question. What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" This was a discipline he applied to himself, but it points to something important about how to evaluate others as well. A person who habitually criticizes others in your presence, without that same self-examining discipline, is showing you their pattern. And patterns do not stop simply because the audience changes. The person who tells you what they really think about someone else, unprompted and often unnecessarily, is very likely doing the same to someone else about you when you are the one who is absent. This does not mean every conversation about another person is a red flag. Genuine concern, genuine processing of a difficult situation with someone you trust, is different from habitual gossip. The distinction lies in the pattern and the spirit behind it. Is this person trying to understand a situation with care for everyone involved? Or is this person simply enjoying the telling, treating other people's private struggles as entertainment or social currency? Watch for the pattern. It will tell you, with real reliability, what happens to your own private information the moment you leave the room. The fifth truth: trust should be extended in layers, not all at once. This is the practical correction to how most people actually handle trust. Most people operate as though trust is binary. Either someone is trusted or they are not. And because that binary feels uncomfortable to maintain, because treating someone with suspicion feels unkind, feels paranoid, most people default to extending significant trust quickly, simply to avoid the discomfort of the alternative. The Stoics suggest something more careful and ultimately more protective of genuine relationships. Trust in layers. Share something small. Watch how it is handled. Extend a little more over time as trustworthiness is actually demonstrated through action. This is not coldness. It is not withholding warmth or genuine engagement. You can be warm, present, and genuinely kind to someone, while still being deliberate about how quickly you hand them access to your deepest vulnerabilities, your private struggles, the parts of yourself that could genuinely be used to hurt you if handled carelessly or maliciously. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded constantly by people whose motives were not always clear, could not afford to extend complete trust instantly to everyone in his presence, and yet he was not, by every account, a cold or suspicious man. He was simply deliberate. He gave people the opportunity, over time, to show him who they actually were, before he gave them the kind of access that could genuinely be exploited. This is the model worth adopting, not suspicion of everyone, not withholding warmth or kindness. Simply the patience to let trust be built in layers through demonstrated action, rather than granted all at once, based on nothing more than a pleasant first impression. The sixth truth: the right people will never require you to shrink yourself to keep them. This final truth is perhaps the most important marker of all, because it addresses not just whether someone is trustworthy, but whether the relationship itself is genuinely good for you. Watch how you feel around different people. Honestly, some relationships require a subtle shrinking, a managing of yourself, a careful monitoring of what you say, what you share, what parts of yourself you allow to be visible, because some instinct tells you that the full version of you is not entirely welcome, or might not be met with genuine warmth. Other relationships allow you to expand, to be more fully yourself, not less. Epictetus taught that freedom is one of the most valuable things a person can protect. Not freedom from all obligation, but freedom to be genuinely yourself without the constant management of a curated performance. A relationship that consistently requires you to shrink, to hide your success because it might make someone uncomfortable, to hide your struggles because they might be used against you, to hide your genuine opinions because they might not be welcomed, is costing you something significant, whether or not that person would ever call themselves anything other than your friend. Genuine friendship, by contrast, does something different. It creates room. It allows more of you to exist safely in that person's presence, not less. This is one of the clearest and most personally reliable tests available. Not what someone says about the relationship, how you actually feel honestly in their presence. Over time. So here are the 6 truths. Most people are not your friends. They are your circumstances. Watch what people do when they have nothing to gain from you. Genuine friendship is rare because it requires vulnerability. Most people are not willing to give. The people who talk about others the most will eventually talk about you. Trust should be extended in layers, not all at once. The right people will never require you to shrink yourself to keep them. 6 truths. None of them are an invitation to become cold, isolated, or permanently suspicious of everyone around you. They are an invitation to something more valuable than either blind trust or complete isolation. Discernment. The specific wisdom to extend real trust to the people who have actually earned it, and to hold appropriate, healthy distance from the people who have not, without resentment, without bitterness, simply with clear eyes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look at things for what they are, not what they appear to be." This applies to relationships as much as anything else in life. Not every smile is warmth. Not every kind word carries genuine care behind it, and not everyone who occupies space in your life has earned the label of friend, but some people have somewhere in your life. Right now, there are likely 1, 2, perhaps a small handful of people who have actually demonstrated, through consistent action over real time, that they deserve your genuine trust. Do not let the pain of past betrayals close you off from recognizing and valuing those people fully. The goal was never to trust no one. The goal was always to trust wisely and to reserve your deepest self, your genuine vulnerability, your real presence, for the people who have actually shown you, through how they act when nothing is required of them, that they deserve it. If this gave you something worth sitting with, share it with someone who is still figuring out the difference between the people around them and the people who are actually for them. Subscribe for new Stoic wisdom every single week.